we've been talking about the incarnation of Christ, meaning that Jesus came down from heaven to become a human being, and we see this doctrine toward the end of the prologue of John, verses 14 through 18 of John 1. And the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we have seen his glory, glorious, the only Son from the Father, full of grace and truth. John, meaning John the Baptist, bore witness about him and cried out, "This is he of whom I said, he who comes after me ranks before me, because he was before me. For from his fullness we have all received grace upon grace. For the law was given through Moses, grace and truth came through Jesus Christ. No one has ever seen God, the only God, who is at the Father's side. He has made him known." So that last part is there's a lot of pronouns in there. So no one has ever seen God, the only God, meaning God the Father, meaning Jesus, the only God who is at the Father's side. He, Jesus, God, the Father, has made him known. My desk. Just don't well, you know what? Do you see where I keep my grading? The second one down is you guys. In that little, that thing. The second one down. That's the seniors. That'll be yours. The middle one. Yeah, there you go.
I have one question.
Yeah. This is the incarnation, right? This is Jesus coming to earth as a man. And in doing so, he didn't cease to be what he has always been. And so he came in fleshly form. He was fully human. He was a flesh and bone man, just like every man on earth. But he was. We need to pay attention. He was a human being, but he was fully God as well. He was fully man and fully God. No one's ever been like that before. And when the Word became flesh, God became a man. And that's the truth of the Christian message, right? Jesus was born in Bethlehem, and he was born to die. And the term for it is he was God incarnate. He was God in the flesh. And we talked about had God appeared in human form before Christ's birth, and we talked about this term, a theophany. And a theophany is a visible appearance of God, but not a physical appearance of God. So we talked about the burning bush and some other things that were theophanies. But Jesus was the only one, it was only Jesus who was God in the flesh. He was not a theophany. He was truly human. But he was also truly God. And so what we're told is that he dwelt among us. He lived among all of the people around him. And that word for dwelt is done?
Yep.
Okay. And that word for dwelt is literally tabernacled. I don't know if if you were here at Cornerstone in fourth grade, I think that's when they talk about the tabernacle. And the literal word there is that he tabernacled among us. What was the tabernacle? Anybody know what the tabernacle was? Yeah.
It was like the tent they used in the wilderness.
That's exactly right. So they had a tent, that God told them to make. And as they wandered in the wilderness, they would stop somewhere, kind of like if you're going to drive to Florida, you're going to stop somewhere and stay there and then go on your journey. So they'd stop somewhere and they would set up the tabernacle, that tent. That God told them to make, and He told him that God is a very detail-oriented God, and He told them everything they needed to do to build that tabernacle. And the tabernacle was the place on earth where God dwelt. But when Jesus came, long after the tabernacle, He was the place where God dwelt on earth. So we're going to make some comparisons of the tabernacle to Jesus. The Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we have seen His glory. Glory as of the only Son of the Father, full of grace and truth. So you see this, He dwelt, He lived among them. Just as the tabernacle dwelt with the people. So we're going to do this comparison. Now, the first thing I want to tell you is, I don't know what the tabernacle looked like. Whoever made this didn't know what the tabernacle looked like. God gave some specifications about it, but I'm not sure we can know exactly what it looked like. Also, we're going to look at the Holy of Holies in just a minute, and I'm not even sure we can know exactly what that looked like. But this is this is not the actual tabernacle. We do not know where that is. We don't know where the Ark of the Covenant is. But that it's a tent that someone made that maybe looks like the tabernacle. And then this outside here was the altar where they would sacrifice the animals. And so I think the next one is, yeah. So the tabernacle was temporary. It was never meant to be the place where God dwelt forever. In fact, when they got to Israel, eventually, it took quite some time. They built not the tabernacle, the temple. And in Jesus' day, I think it was because the temple kept getting knocked down. I can't remember which number of tabernacle it was in Jesus' day, and that tabernacle also was destroyed in AD 70, and it's never been built again. Where the temple used to stand is now there's a mosque there, but they had this tabernacle in the wilderness. But when they got to Jerusalem, when they got to the promised land, they built a temple. So then the tabernacle was no longer needed. The temple also had a Holy of Holies. It also had the Ark of the Covenant, which got lost too. And it was. I changed this, by the way. So it was. The first thing is that it was temporary. The second thing is put ordinary. It was ordinary. Now, what that originally said was it was outwardly unattractive. And we're comparing this to Jesus. They're saying Jesus was unattractive. I think that that's overstating what is said in Isaiah. This is the verse that makes them say Jesus is ugly. It says this: "For he grew up." This is a prophecy of Messiah. For he grew up before him. So Jesus grew up before God like a young plant and like a root out of dry ground. He had no form or majesty that we should look at him, and no beauty that we should desire him. So they think that means that Jesus was not good looking. I don't know what Jesus looked like, but this is what I do believe. He was a Jew. and Jesus didn't have like a halo over his head, right? And he wasn't able to, leap tall buildings in a single bound. He was an ordinary looking human being. He was fully God, but he was fully human. And I think what this verse is trying to tell us is he looked like any other Jew. He probably was pretty short. About in that day, the average height of a Jewish male was about 5'4" or 5'5". And he would have had he would have been dark complected and dark hair, maybe curly hair, probably long hair. But he looked just like any Jew. It's not like those pictures you see where there's a halo over Jesus' head, the paintings. That wasn't the case. He was an ordinary looking man. So I'm not going to call him unattractive, but I don't know. We'll find out someday. Uh, then the tabernacle was God's dwelling place. It was the place where God dwelt on earth. Now, this is a representation of the Holy of Holies. It was covered in gold, and there were to be angels on the top. I don't know exactly what that looked like. This is just a representation of something that might be like that. And that was God's dwelling place. When they were in the desert, God dwelt right there. And Moses would go in and talk with God. And so that was during those years when they were wandering in the wilderness. God dwelled with them. And whenever God shows up, it is overwhelming. I don't know if we talked about this. You can put it on my desk. I don't know if we talked about this before. I did in a couple of other classes, but when God shows up, it's mind-boggling. And so there was this time, and I think maybe we talked about this, but Jesus took not Matthew, took James, Peter, and John up on a mountain, and all of a sudden, Jesus was transfigured. It's the Mount of Transfiguration, and he was glowing, and his glory was obvious. And then Moses and who else? Moses and Elijah showed up. And I think John and James were probably like silent and scared. But Peter, because Peter was Peter, he started talking. And he probably shouldn't have talked. He should probably just let Jesus talk to Elijah and Moses. But he says, okay, oh, this is great. Okay, yeah, okay, there. Oh wow, that's Moses. And then so should we make huts for them? Are they staying for dinner? Should we build something for them? And I think probably, and I do this sometimes too. They didn't know what to say, so they started just babbling about it. But here's the point: it was so glorious. The three men couldn't handle it. It was so godly and so holy, and that is true. You know what I think people think? I think they think that when they get to heaven, they're going to have the opportunity to make a case for how they lived and make excuses for all the stuff they did that wasn't good. I don't think that's what's going to happen. This is what I think is going to happen. We're all going to be face down worshiping God. And it will be amazing. But it will also be, the word I want to say is terrifying, but that has such a negative connotation. it will be overpowering. It will be overpowering. And we're not going to plead our case. We're going to worship forever. So, and it says in verse 14 that we saw the glory of Jesus. And it was the glory of God. That's the AKB version of the Bible. And that is true. And then this is so the tabernacle was where God met people. I know it said that in your book, but women, we're also part of that. So where God met people. And now Jesus takes the place of the tabernacle. The tabernacle is no longer necessary because Jesus is the place where people meet God. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit. I'm going to do a little drawing for you. I am not an artist. I'm awful, actually, but we're going to give it a shot. Anybody on the track team? Tobin, it's you. Here, this is Tobin. No, this is me. This is me. We're going to start with me, Tobin. I'll use you in a minute. Okay? Okay, here's me. Okay? This is a holy God. This is our holy God right here. Now, people seem to think that they're going to earn their way to heaven. We cannot earn our way to heaven. So here's me, here's God, and I'm going to do my very best to get to God. I'm going to be nice to people. I'm not going to yell at my students anymore. I won't get any detentions. I'm going to be as good as I can be. And that's what most people think, that as long as my good outweighs my bad, I'm in. Now, that would be 50%, 51% to 49%. How many of you would be like, yay, I got a 51% on my test? No, you wouldn't. That's not a good score. But that's also, what's the baseline for a test? 100%. And that's the thing. Apart from Christ, you have to be 100% good. And you can't. Nobody can. We can't earn our way to God. But most people think we can. They also, as I said, think they can plead their case. No. God already knows it all. You don't have to plead your case. He's seen it all. So this person is like, I'm going to be really good and I'm going to make my way to God, and this is me, right? So here I go. I'm going really fast. That's fast for me. And I'm going to jump, and I'm going to get this. Kaboom. On the bottom. There we go. So now, Tobin, though, he can do better, right? So this is Tobin now, right? And he is going to go flying in the air. And he's going to land in the same place. Because we can't be perfect. And that's the standard, perfection. God is the standard. And he's perfect. We can't earn our way to God. There's no way to do it. But the good news is, the really, truly good news is, God's already done it. There's nothing we need to do other than to accept what he's already done for us. And when that happens, you're saved. And you don't have to earn your way to heaven, and you don't have to be perfect, because God did it for you. Yes? Are there what? You got. Can you eat? Oh, eat in heaven? Yeah, there's going to be a big banquet. I don't know if there's only one or if it's every day. I don't know, but it talks about a banquet in heaven. But here's the thing. You know, my kids are little, and they ask things like, I'm not going to say names because this is going out on YouTube, and I don't want to get in trouble with my kids. But one of my children had a blankie and was like Linus, like needed the blankie. And he asked me if blankie would be in heaven. And I said, God knows everything you need, and He will give you everything you need. So if you need blankie, you'll have blankie. Now, I didn't say blankie would be in heaven, did I? Blanky isn't even on earth anymore, so I don't know what happened to Blanky. But we will have all that we need. I know. So this is Exodus talking about the Ark of the Covenant. And you shall put the mercy seat on the top of the ark, and the ark shall put the testimony, and you shall put the testimony that I will give you, the 10 Commandments. There I will meet with you, and from above the mercy seat, from between the two cherubim that are on the ark of testimony, I will speak with you about all that I will give you in commandment for the people of Israel. So that's talking about God's covenant with His people. And then this is Acts 4. This Jesus, and this is, I think it's Peter talking. This Jesus is the stone that was rejected by you, the builders, which has become the cornerstone. And there is salvation in no one else, for there is no other name under heaven given among men by which we must be saved. He is our salvation because of what He's done for us on the cross and through the empty grave. So we'll do one more thing and then we'll stop. Oh, for there is one God and there is one. This is Timothy. This is Paul writing. For there is one God, and there is one mediator between God and men, the man Christ Jesus, who gave himself as a ransom for all, which is the testimony given at the proper time. So Jesus is our mediator. He is the one that comes in and makes it possible for us to live forever with God in heaven. And He won that for us, not only on the cross, but also through the empty tomb. So He dwells in us, and He is the one that allows us to know God and to live in heaven. We're going to stop there, and then we'll pick up here on Monday.